Hey everyone, good evening, and thank you for joining Behind the Crime Door. It's good to see all of you here this evening. I think it's going to be a really good show, and as you all know, I have a special guest waiting backstage. Skip Jansen is going to be with us, and I'm looking forward to this. Hey Tech Death, it's good to see you. I want to let everyone know that my intro that you watched, Tech Death Hippie did the music for me for that, and that is called The Requiem, and I certainly think it's wonderful. I love it. The graphics was done by Grismatically Clever. He's also one of my mods, and he did all the graphics for me for my intro. So I just want to give those guys a shout out. They both have channels on YouTube, so go check them out. Tech Death has some really great music. He's a really great musician, so go give them a subscribe and a like for me if you would. Hey Faye, how are you this evening, hon? It's good to see you. I'm glad you're here. Hey, Cold Truth, how are you? It's so good to see you tonight. Hi, Jeff Burke. Thank you for coming. Rick Snay, good to see you here. An Indiana native, it looks like. Let's see, who else is in here with us tonight? Hey, Maria. Thank you so much for sharing Tech Death's channel for me. Everybody say hello to True Crime Maria. She has an amazing YouTube channel. She did some really great videos covering Kagan Klein and a lot of what's been going on with them since December. So please make sure you go over, check her out, subscribe and like her channel. You will not be sorry that you did that. Hey, Jennifer, good to see you. Mbake, I'm so glad to have you back this evening. So I'm going to go ahead and let everybody know just right up front. I've already got 35 people watching. I know that this may very well get really busy in here tonight, but I do want to let everyone know that I expect everyone to show some decorum in the chat and be respectful to the guest. Skip has been a controversial figure surrounding Delphi, and in my opinion, that has been unwarranted. So, and I will speak to that a little bit after I get him in here, but I want to make sure that everybody is aware of what I expect in my chat. I just want to keep it chill. We'll all have a good conversation, and there is absolutely no victim or family bashing allowed in my channel. So if you have come in here to talk about any of those kinds of theories, please see the door, because we won't be speaking about those this evening. Hey, who's your girl? Ditching the grind. Good to see you guys. So I'm going to go ahead and bring Skip on, and everybody, please welcome him. I will say that we did have some technical difficulties, and I was not able to get his avatar loaded, and he couldn't get it loaded either. So he's going to be a black screen, and I apologize for that. Hey, Skip.
That's actually appropriate. Hey, Kristen, how are you?
How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm doing great.
Yeah, I appreciate you inviting me to do your show.
Oh, well, good. I'm glad you're here.
Me too.
I think it'll be a really good night. So hey, Nicole. Everyone say hello to my daughter who just showed up. Anyway, so
Hey, there's tech death hippie is all that guy's everywhere, isn't he?
He is.
He's
He's so
amazing.
awesome.
And does he do the intro for every YouTube channel, every True Crime channel? I know he does Graz, I know, and some others. I mean,
Yeah,
yeah, he does a great job.
yeah. I met him through Graz when I started modding for him, and so yeah, he told me he had some music for me when I started my channel, and I love it. He's great.
Yeah, he's great, no question.
So, and he said he did tell me to tell you hello, but he's in there, so you can just say hi to him now.
Hey, how's it going, hippie? Tech death. Yeah, he's
There
good.
you go. There you go. So I was just going to say a little bit while Skip's in here with us now. I do think that a lot of the flack that he took last year, especially around the DP theory, was a little bit uncalled for, to say the least. I don't think that he was involved in anything where DP was actually doxxed, and I just think it's been unfair. So let's be respectful to him tonight,
Thank
because
you.
he's got a lot of good information, and I think that he can really help us to better understand some of the things that have been happening around this case, and especially recently. We will allow questions. So what I'm going to do is, as you guys put them in the chat, if you could highlight them in some way so that I don't miss them. My mods will be pretty good about trying to let me know about them as well. Maria, I have my phone on, so if you want to give me a heads up. But I know people want to ask Skip questions, and that's really fine. I think he's fine with that. So
Are you going to explain to everybody how we know each other, or
yeah, you can go ahead and do that.
Oh, okay. The way I remember it was, I think it was a photo floating around to me, and you saw it and just said I need to meet that guy or something. That how it went down.
Yeah, it was like I listened to the True Crime Garage podcast that you were on with the DP theory, and I was really, really interested in everything that you had to say. A lot of the things that you brought up really made a lot of sense to me. And at the time, it was just like, I really want to know more about what he knows or why he thinks this. So
Yeah.
that's really kind of what got it started. And so I went out and started writing about him on Reddit, and I really got trashed for that.
Yeah, that's usually a good way to get trashed is talk about me. So
So I realized I just
support you've given me over the time we've been on there. I really appreciate it.
well, I just I took the time to get to know you, and I think that that's where it's at. I mean, you really care about this case, and you're not one of the ones that are out there doing stuff for bizarre reasons. You really do care. And I think if people would take the time to figure that out, then they would see that you weren't involved with all the stuff with Faceman and others, and that whole Facebook fiasco that went on. I'm sorry, but that's the way I kind of see it. So anyway,
I understand. I understand where people have there's some displeasure with that. I get that. I know his intentions were not to rub people the wrong way, or that he was trying to just draw attention to something, and I know the kind of guy he is. So I had a little bit of insight on that, but at the same time, I can understand why people feel that way. I think it got to the point where it was probably a little over the top. Yeah.
Yeah, it definitely was. I think we all saw that, especially on Reddit.
Yeah.
But let's move away from that, because I don't think you want to spend time talking about that necessarily. I don't know that I want to spend time talking about that. I think there's a lot more that we could unpack here. And how do you feel about that?
Absolutely. I'm going to move forward. Like you said, there's a lot of things going on in the case, and that's kind of instead of rehashing things, try to focus on the things moving forward.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of movement in the case. I feel like we've seen a lot of movement since December, and then especially here recently. So I think those are all good signs, and I think we can really delve into that. So I wanted to talk to you about what your thoughts were um, when we got the news about the Anthony Shots profile in December. What was your initial thought about that, Skip?
My initial thought was, considering the time that it was put out and in the manner that it was put out, um, knowing that a news story was coming out the next day, my initial thought was they're probably just trying to get ahead of it. And we've seen law enforcement do that before. They're really public relations oriented. You can't blame them. Their reputation is really important. So, but since then, I've looked at it, and there could be more substance to it than what I initially thought.
Yeah, I think that maybe we all did at first. I think it blindsided us. Didn't it blindside you a little bit?
It did. There hasn't been really anything from law enforcement that's come out and said that Anthony shot that it's related to Delphi. There's been HLN, and then with the murder sheet thing, there's been some association with it through documents that have been found, court documents. So I don't want to jump in both feet with it, but at the same time, it's definitely something worth talking about.
Because what would be the reason? And I know that you know a lot. You have a little bit of a reason to have a little bit of background knowledge about how law enforcement sees things and stuff. But I want to know, why would they put out that information and it ask people to contact the tip line for Abby and Libby if it had nothing to do with their case?
Yeah,
I mean,
I don't know that I have a great explanation, except if it doesn't have anything to do with it. I think they think could be a connection. I don't know that they know for sure that there's a connection, but I think if there's a likelihood of connection, I can see why they would put it, because they would want all the tips to come there so they could keep them. Because his other case in Miami County is already kind of set. I know that I'm sure there was going to be probably more charges stacked on what he already has, after they asked for the information. But I think that they probably wanted to keep. They probably anticipated a lot of information coming in, and they wanted to keep those two things separate.
Yeah, because I think what they're looking for is they're looking for people who have interacted with him and possible victims that have been victimized by him, or whoever was using that profile.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I think access to that profile is probably a key component in all this.
Yeah, we know there was a Dropbox issue here where they were using a Dropbox and sharing files.
Yeah, I'm not an expert on that. I've never engaged in any of that, so I don't know in terms of whether. I'm talking about just the technology of it, and so I don't really know how all that works. And I know there's a bunch of people who've had stories about that tons of people and they're bad guys all have access to this. That's, to me, that's all speculation. I mean, I know that's possible, but I haven't seen a whole lot of evidence that says it's true. Particularly with what he said yesterday, or when the interview was released, that he said he didn't say. I mean, he wasn't volunteering, but at the same time, he didn't say that anybody else had access to the account besides his father.
No, that was definitely something that was kind of new.
I didn't expect him to expound on that and say, when they said, who had access to your account, I didn't expect him to come out and say, oh, well, and start naming names. But at the same time, I think it's likely that there's not the amount of people that some people believe.
Thank you, Nicole, for letting me know there's a tornado watch. So let's see. Where do we want to go with this? Hang on. I made some notes about this stuff because we're talking about a couple different things. We're talking about the Anthony Shots profile and how that kind of led us to start wondering about catfishing and, were the girls talking with someone online? And I want to be honest here. I mean, I've had so many people ask me over the last years on whether or not I had a POI in this case. And I've honestly never had a real true POI. I've had people that I thought were possible people, but never anything solid because I don't think we have enough information to have a person of interest. That's my personal opinion. But what I will say is that we I've always felt that there was some sort of possibility that they were talking to somebody online and that person may have stalked them in some manner, or the person that they were talking to, someone else got that information from them. So I didn't know. But I've always kind of felt that, even when law enforcement came out and told us absolutely not, and so did the family.
Well, yeah, I agree. I think that one of the things they were contradicting themselves in a lot of ways by saying that there was no evidence of that, and I get that. There's no evidence, so we can't really say that it was catfishing. But at the same time, they're saying, listen, this is such a remote area. The chances of somebody just being out there on a day when the girls showed up the odds are so low that it's almost not even worth considering. But they're saying, the opposite. Yeah, that's where people get confused, because they're like, they think some law enforcement says something and that's automatically 100% true. And so I've always felt that the likelihood was that they were communicating with somebody as well. I think the phone reset was indication of that. I think that I've got a daughter, and I asked her, she's in college now, but I asked her, I said, when you were 14 years old, why would you reset your phone? And I asked her with a couple of her friends, and they all said to hide something, and that, again, that's not. I don't want any of this to sound like that Libby or Abby did anything wrong, because they didn't. Communicating with people online at 14 years old is 100% normal. As a matter of fact, if they weren't, it would probably be unusual. So it's not their fault that maybe they ran across the wrong person. Who had malice in their mind, and were because that seems to be a lot of that out there in the world now. And so, I mean, there's only one person to blame in this: the guy wearing the blue coat on the bridge. That's it.
Exactly. I agree with you there. And I also agree with what you said about the where was that? My head just kind of went off on a tangent here. Where you said about the teenage girls speaking with people online. I think it's sad when they look at that in a negative light. And I've heard a couple of different things this week. After I put out the thing that my notification to everyone that you were going to be on the show, I started getting absolutely crazy inundated with emails and all kinds of weird things. But one of the people said to me, why didn't the girls call 911 if they had the phone? They saw this guy, and I'm like, to me, that's victim blaming. To me, that's
yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
If it, hindsight's 2020. I mean, yeah, I wish they would have called too. But, maybe the cell service was sketchy that day. I don't know. Everybody said, well, no, because she uploaded the photo to Snapchat, so everything was fine. But I just, I don't know why people do that, I guess. That's my point. I don't understand why they go there. Like you just said, the only person that should be blamed for what happened that day is the man who killed them.
Absolutely.
And
there's one thing we probably need to consider a little bit is law enforcement, if something like that happened, is very cognizant of the family's feelings and things like that, and they will handle a case differently if there's some sensitive things that involved. And something like that could be going on that they're trying to figure out, how to arrest this guy and get a conviction, but they're also, as a byproduct of that, trying to, make a plan for how this goes down with the family as well.
No,
And
exactly.
that happens in a lot more cases than people realize.
Well, I know that, people talk about what the percentages are in these kinds of cases, that they look at family members. But I think that this case is highly different than most murders of children where family might be involved. I just don't think this case even comes close to being that type of a case with everything that we know. So it kind of really bothers me that people go there. But everybody's entitled to their opinion. I just don't let that happen here on my channel.
Well, like I said, law enforcement has caught a lot of criticism as well. And I think if we consider that, a couple of things, they've said they believe this guy is following the case closely. And so, if you consider that, then they're not going to show their hand and let the guy know everything they have. And also, if they're trying to handle a sensitive situation involving the family, then they've got that under consideration. So there's just a lot of things involved behind the scenes that everybody needs to be aware of.
And that's true because, I've made videos about this. I've talked about this on my channel, that law enforcement owes us nothing.
Right.
They don't. And I know there's people out there that want to know more than what we know. And I get why that is. But the integrity of the case has to be maintained. And they are the ones who determine what that is, not us.
Right. I agree. I think that anything we get, we should probably just feel fortunate. I know there's been a big push lately about releasing more information. I'm of the belief, same as you, is that law enforcement, they need to play the hand that they think will end up being a winner. They don't need to release information just to satisfy our interest.
Wow, hold on a second. Just give me a moment, you guys. I want to ask Skip something. Just give me a second. Wow. Hold on a second.
Well, I know. Can I answer real Cornet's question?
Yeah, you can answer a question. Go ahead. I'm just typing you.
Yeah, he's asking about the HLN question about communicating with
go ahead.
Kelsey, and it wasn't a mistake. I don't know if I'm reading that right. It just went back. Anyway, we don't. The thing is, we don't know who all was being communicated with. I know there was. I was told that a kid there in town, one of Libby's friends named Max Snowberger, had told Julie Melvin that Libby was communicating with a guy who was I think a senior at that time, or junior maybe. And I'm not obviously not say his name, but there's another guy she was communicating with, and so we don't know. I don't know how many who all was communicating with, who were friends, who friends were on Facebook, who were Snapchat friends were, and all that. I don't, it's impossible to know. We just, all we know about is their interest in the Anthony Schatz account. They haven't told us exactly why, just that they have interest in it. They may have interest in everybody she was talking to.
Right. And I agree with you on that. And, there's a message here. Little Pookie says, responding to Jeff Burke, in my opinion, this is larger than Delphi. Last I heard, the FBI is still involved. The FBI is still involved. Are they not, Skip?
Yeah, they are. They were initially. People had questions why the head of the FBI was there. There was an initial belief that there was a guy named Buster Hernandez that when Brian Kill was his name online, and he had made a bunch of threats to schools in Indiana and females and what he was going to do to them. And they ended up arresting him in California, and they thought that he was communicating with the surveillance people. ISP has a really pretty significant surveillance group, and they had been keeping tabs on this guy for a while, along with the FBI. And so when the Delphi murders happened, they thought the way that it fell into the time frame of because it was right around the time this guy was doing all this, they were looking into that. Since I think that they've just stayed around because they know the importance of the case.
Yes, and I think that that's true, and I also think because ISP asked for help from them, they're willing to give any assistance that they can in this case, whether it be technical assistance. We know that they helped on the video and the still photos. We know they did.
Yeah, absolutely. That's where I think their assistant comes into play for any crime that happens in a small or rural area. They want to offer up as any of the technological things that they have. So, but I know early on, because they were the ones who issued the search warrant at Klein's house. So, or they were part of it at least. So they were doing more than just providing assistance in that regard. They were actually active on the streets. They had some agents in town, and they had a large group of not only FBI but ISP, and then of course the local Carroll County guys, because there was just so much to look into early, and when there's a multi-task force like that was involved with that, unless it's coordinated just almost perfectly, it's really easy for something to fall through the cracks, because you might have a group issuing search warrants or serving search warrants. You might have a guy executing search warrants. You might have another group taking witness statements. You might have another group looking into something else, and all that has to be coordinated and checked again. And I believe I think it was in the Carroll County newspaper that there was a story about alibis being that they were lying of some lies, and they were trying to check up on those. It's a difficult thing unless it's coordinated just right. It's really easy for something to fall through the cracks. I know that people say, "Oh, well, if there's no way this guy could fake the FBI out," or anything. It's not a matter. That's not the issue. The issue is they're having multiple groups in town, and if it's not coordinated right, it can fall through the cracks. Just that simple.
No, exactly, and I think you're right. There not only did the Carroll County Comment do a article on that, but that law enforcement spoke to that. I believe that Kim Riley spoke to it, as did Jerry Holman, about the fact that there were issues with alibis early on.
Yeah.
In the case.
Yeah. And the guy who coordinated is a controversial FBI guy, Jay Abbott. He was actually the guy who was doing that, and it's a pretty good. I don't know, however you feel about him is whatever, but he has a pretty good interview on YouTube where he talks about it and how things can happen if it's not done just right. So.
No, I agree, and I know that Jay Abbott's controversial. Actually, I didn't find that out until just maybe a couple of years ago. But for those, Skip, do you want to tell him why he is my guess? If you know, if not, I'll tell him.
Well, you want to about the gymnastics or the Michigan?
Yes.
Yeah. No, go ahead and tell him. I know about it, but you can tell him.
Okay, so the reason that he said that about Jay Abbott, he is the FBI agent that was on the case of, oh God, what's his name? I can't think of his name Larry Nassar, with the whole USA Gymnastics mess. And in fact, he has been, he's going to be charged by the Justice Department. I don't know if they've already done that and he's lost his job, but they're going to bring charges against him and one other agent because they lied and basically covered for this guy. So it makes you wonder sometimes. I mean, when things like that happen, people run with that about law enforcement. And as far as I'm concerned in this case, yeah, law enforcement's made mistakes. We know that. And especially Carroll County did early on. And I think it's because they were overwhelmed. They'd never seen a murder of any kind like this in their county ever. And they weren't trained or prepared for this. So the mistakes that they made, I do not believe at all were intentional.
I don't either. But we have to remember one thing. Law enforcement, and particularly as you get up into a level of FBI, are extremely image conscious. Their reputation is everything. Because if the public doesn't trust them, they don't really have anything. So you have to always consider that when statements are made or actions are taken or whatever. You're looking for reasons why people did stuff. That's just part of it. That's part of the whole thing. The public, their public appearance, and so.
I mean, I've basically said, this case is so high profile that for law enforcement to deliberately do anything to slow it down or not be working diligently on it, I think that would be a career ender for whoever is found out to be doing something like that. And I think we all can tell, when Doug Carter's up there talking about this case, that man has raw emotion when he's talking about it. I've heard him described as a Hollywood star, a great actor, but I don't see him acting.
I don't get the criticism with him at all.
Yeah.
I think I see him kind of as a father figure, and that's the way he kind of sees himself and portrays himself. And I don't have a problem with that,
Right.
I don't think it undermines his authority one bit. And I don't even have problems with some of the things he says where people get confused, because I know, he's saying things for reason and things that he believes. Does it always come out perfect? No, but I think there's a rhyme and a reason why he says everything he says.
Oh no, exactly, and I agree with you 100% on that one.
I would rather have somebody like that honest and upfront than somebody who was, trying to keep, didn't really tell you everything and half truths and this and that. I'd rather have somebody like him. And if he doesn't want to answer a question, he just is not going to answer it. But because he doesn't want to, hurt the case. But I've never understood the criticism of him.
Yeah, I've never understood it either. I totally just don't get it. What I want to ask you a question about the 2019 press conference, the April 22nd, 2019 press conference, where it was that everybody calls it the New Direction press conference. What now that we know what we know now, and looking back on that, what are your thoughts of what happened at that press conference?
I've talked yesterday with Fig about it. We have opposite opinions on that particular aspect of the case, and he made some good points about that. It could be the FBI profile, that all the things about power, and we've likely talked to you and all that. But there was also a sketch change, and there was also a change of, we believe, instead of it being they were looking for someone nationally by the 6,000 billboards in 48 states to, we believe this guy's local, he either lives here, has lived here, visits here, or lives somewhere in the area. That hence the, hiding in plain sight. So I think there was more to it than just would come out of the FBI's playbook, and when the second sketch was released, it looked so different, and the age changed, but the physical characteristics didn't change. He remained reddish brown hair. He remained this height. He remained that weight. If that was two different people, then you almost had twins out there that day. And to me, that never made sense. So that always pointed to me that they were talking to someone in particular. And when you combine that with the fact that They had a sketch for that sketch 4 days after the crime, right?
Yep.
Law enforcement says they follow up on every tip and lead, right?
Yep.
2 years go by, and people want to convince me that they threw that sketch in a drawer, that they would have followed up on that and identified that person, at least investigate it hard. And if they didn't, I think it's likely they would have put that sketch out too as a person of interest they want to talk to who might have seen something that day.
So can I ask you this?
Yeah.
Okay, so we know the sketch was done on the 17th,
Mm-hmm.
I believe. It was done on the 17th. And so that's really quick.
Yeah.
So it has, my question, I guess, to you is this. What do you think? And I know this is speculation because we don't know. So if you don't want to answer it, I'm fine with that. But what do you think about where that sketch came from? Is it an eyewitness, or is it something that they got off the phone that we don't know and have never seen? What do you think?
I think it's really unlikely it came off of the phone.
Okay.
I think they may have had access to everything that was on that phone at that point. Or, I know some people have said that, well, it was a friend of Libby's that had seen a picture on the phone, and that was the description she was giving. What law enforcement said was it came from a witness, who saw somebody that day. It was someone that needed to be reported.
Isn't that Brad Heath?
Could be.
Isn't that what we're led to believe anyway?
Well,
that person was Brad Heath.
He was a known witness very early on. He came forward and said he was working across the street from the trails, and he was talking about just how bad he felt about it. Knowing something happened like that as he was working across the street. When you look at the map, there's not a whole lot of things across the street there. I know right there where the road, where 325, where there's a Harvest or Hoosier Harvest store and some residents there. And they would be across the street. I don't know exactly where he was working, but it seems likely that since he's a known witness, he could be somebody. I think at a minimum, maybe since if he was there, that could have something to do with the vehicle at the CPS.
Okay.
And he could be a witness for both.
Have you ever heard about the witness rumor? I know you have. You're on Reddit, so I know the answer to this question. But have you ever heard? How do you feel about the rumor witness that was coming from work in Lafayette around 8:00 that night and came upon the pickup truck on the Hoosier Highway that was broke down with the person walking, and she stopped to offer him assistance? Have you heard that?
Yeah, I heard that. I think that was one of the early witness rumors, I believe. I think I first came aware of it off of a site. Is it called Truth Tellers or?
Yes, Truth Tellers or Web Sleuths.
Yeah, one of those that had her statement they had a screenshot of her statement from Facebook or whatever, and I believe she said he was even said his name. I think she said his name was Aaron and that he worked for his dad's construction company. I actually looked at somebody about that because there's a family that lives really close to the creek, really close to the bridge. That name's not Aaron, but their last names are very similar to that. And there were some red flags. I'll be honest with you. I mean, I know people think associate with me with DP and all that, but I've looked at I'm open to looking at anything and everybody.
Can you say that again, please, so everybody can hear it?
But then if somebody provides good evidence on somebody, I certainly would look at it and consider it. There's no question. I'm not locked into just the DP. A belief and closed-minded are two different things. Because I have a belief doesn't mean I'm closed-minded to anything outside of that.
Right. And
so I looked into this kid. There were some red flags with both he and the parent. And so he owns a construction company in Delphi. So and he looks like the second sketch.
I know there's so many different people that can kind of fit into the puzzle. It's really strange.
He had an animal cruelty charge too that was pretty eye-opening. Was really kind of a red flag. I couldn't find anything additional after that, though. It was the proximity to the bridge was big, no question. That witness statement would have been important. I don't know how valid it was. I don't know if that witness statement really happened. But I looked into it. It was not like I was actually asked to look into that.
Oh, really?
I don't want to say anything more about that, but yes.
Well, I just put up a map kind of that's got a lot of stuff on it, but basically for everybody that doesn't know the layout of this case as far as where things are, it lets us know where the bridge is, where the girls were found here. We believe they were abducted at the end of the bridge here. It just gives you some of the logistics of what we're talking about for people who aren't aware of it while we're talking about this. But yeah, I just kind of wondered how you felt about some of those early rumors because everything that we know now and I know you have probably different opinions than I do on some of this, but I wanted to talk a little bit tonight with you about the stuff that came out yesterday with the interview of Kagan in jail with Barbara McDonald. And I just want to ask you a couple of things about what he said. I pulled a whole bunch of them out of that 25-page document that I thought was important or odd.
Yep.
And I wanted to get your opinion on them. Are you in agreement to that?
Yeah, I'm looking at it. Yeah.
Okay. So she asked the question, did you have anything to do with the murders? And he replied, no. Not at all, not at all. And that he gave up his DNA, a hair follicle test, and he's done everything that they wanted him to do.
Right.
Sounds like he's been cooperative, correct?
That's what he's
That's what he's saying. I know. We have to take everything, I think, that is said in this with a grain of salt.
Consider the source and understand the context of it for sure.
Exactly, because we know that he's lied about a lot of things, and all you have to do is look at his Facebook to figure that one out.
Right.
And then she asked him where he was on February the 13th, 2017, and he says he was at home in Peru, Indiana, and that they have his GPS locations and everything. Do you think that that's a little weird, being the fact that he posted on Facebook that he started a job on February the 12th in Las Vegas as a dealer?
Yeah, look, it's you said something a second ago, about we know he lies all we know he lies all the time. So when he lies about something else, should it surprise us? I don't know.
No, but I guess how do we discern what's truth and what's not?
That's the problem. That's exactly the problem.
Yeah. So we're on the same page there.
Trying to figure out what's when somebody you don't really believe what they're saying, trying to figure out when they that one time or something they're going to tell you the truth. So
right.
That's why with the one, I know people, I have a lot of people who come after me about the theory and all that, but I've been very clear from the beginning that it's a theory. It's based on what law enforcement's told us, information we found about what the person of interest has told us, people that were there that day. So I don't try to uh, dissect everything law enforcement says and determine. And I don't have a magic. I don't have a crystal ball. I can't tell you when law enforcement's lying and when they're not. So I take what they say as the truth and apply it, because that's really all I can do. Because
Right.
I can't pick and choose. I'm not a mind reader. I don't know when they're lying and when they're not. So if they tell me something, they say, whether it be in the 2019 press conference or whether it be in interviews a month later or whenever, I have to consider what they say as them telling the truth, because that's information they want out in the public.
Do you think there's a lot of cherry picking of information out there?
Yes.
To fit someone's narrative?
Yes, and I think that would be the only thing. Look, I knew, it's my bed and I'll lay in it. I understand that. Okay, I understand what comes with having a public POI, but I will defend it by saying I do not cherry pick what law enforcement says. As a matter of fact, if you asked me what the core of the theory was, I would say it's what law enforcement believes.
Yeah, and I agree with that.
That's just based on their comments over the 5-year period. So
I'm the kind of person that I try to stay away from conspiracy theories. I kind of try to stay away from really wild, blown out stories around this case and stick with what we know as far as facts, because I don't feel that it does any good to do the other. But
well, it's like the sketches have always been the witness testimony or the witness statements, and the sketches have always been the two things to me that have been the most controversial thing, because we've gotten so many different stories about who the real witnesses are, who they really saw, where they saw them, what time. You have law enforcement come out, and they came out and said, well, we had multiple sketches. One was Mike Patty. Well, yeah, you saw Mike Patty. He would have been seen at 5:00. That would have been of no consequence. So you have to only consider the ones that were done in the time frame that somebody could have been there to commit the murders.
No, exactly.
So when somebody said, well, they had multiple sketches, they didn't have multiple sketches of people in the area at that time. They may have had multiple sketches because, like Mike being there at 5:00, but they knew BG was gone by that time. So that wouldn't have mattered.
Right. And I know I've heard that too, that, the first sketch is Mike Patty. I never bought that ever. I never thought that sketch came from anybody who saw Mike. Mike was at work. He was in Lafayette at Caterpillar working.
Right.
So
that was that witness that saw that person was around 1:30, something like that. So it couldn't have been him. That's my point. That the fact that there were other sketches is insignificant, because it would have to be a sketch done in the time frame of somebody who could commit the murders.
Right, exactly. And I think we found out over the last 5 years that, for one, law enforcement has never talked to us about any witnesses. They've never told us one thing about a witness. Have they?
No. Well, no, they have not ever said. Holman said at the 2018 Crime Con, when they had the family there, he said, he slipped out and said he said there were multiple witnesses for the first sketch, and and they couldn't agree on the hat. That was so he didn't know. There's never been any names or anything like that, but they believed that the two or however many people there were for the first sketch, the old bridge guy sketch, they believed that person was the guy on the bridge at that time. Said, obviously, since they've changed the sketch now, do you believe that that sketch is a depiction of the two different depictions of the same person, or do you believe that's actually two different individuals that were out there that day?
Well, I'm going to go with what Doug Carter just told us a few weeks ago when he was interviewed, and he said, take both sketches and put them one over the other, stand bridge guy behind them, drop the sketches, and there he'll be. So that leads me to believe that it could be a combination of the two.
That seems, I mean, to me, I think that probably makes the most sense. I mean, I kind of have a belief about that, a theory about it, that I think that he know that Carter believes the 16-year-old witness saw the right guy. He may have been had his face covered with a scarf or in some kind of a slight disguise, coat cover, whatever. She didn't see him well enough to identify him. But I think he may be saying that because he doesn't want to discredit or disregard her, because he knows down the road they can still use her as they can't maybe use the other witness who recanted, but they can use her because she still saw the guy in the right clothes. She still saw him at the time frame of somebody who could committed the murders. So she can still be a witness. And I think he does. And although she was the witness to drawing of the older sketch, which is no longer or secondary now, she still could be in play as a witness because of the time frame and the clothing she saw.
Right.
Witness can be used as sightings. It doesn't always have to be, oh, I saw their face and all that. It can be saw them at the right time, and because it puts the person there. So it'd probably be more of a supporting role, but it would still be somebody they could use. And I think he just doesn't want to throw that away. I think he knows that BG is going to look more like the second sketch, but he doesn't want to disregard that first witness because he knows he's going to need her.
And I think that makes, I mean, to me, that's a really good point. I want to address something real quick. Skip, hold on one second, okay?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Okay, Machiavelli, first of all, let me put it this way. We've moved off talking about DP, and I really don't want to discuss this much anymore, but I will say I've never heard Skip anywhere call DP by his name. I'll let him speak to that, but I agree with you. He's never been charged with a crime, but the difference here is that DP went out on social media and claimed to have been there that day. So that opened him up to being part of the people at the bridge that day, which leads people to point fingers at him. But what I will say to this is we also have to know, with all the hacking that's gone on around this case of people's Facebook, Twitter, YouTube accounts, anybody could do that and pretend that they were DP and put that out there. That has always been in the back of my mind. I do want to say that, but I'll let Skip speak to this if he wants to. But I want to put the DP stuff to bed. I want to talk about other things this evening, and I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah. First, I wanted to address Cicada Sounds saying I think the teen-girl witness saw the same clothes the man on the bridge. I think that as well. I agree with her, and I think that's why she's still in play as a witness. You know, when they set aside the first sketch, made it secondary, and they told people to focus on the young guy sketch. If you totally disregard that sketch, you totally disregard those witnesses. And I think Carter's trying to. They've got to really watch their words and what they say about how they explain those things that happened, about how the second sketch came to be, and about how, you know, why the sketch changed, why the change from to local, all of those things. And I think he's doing it the best way he knows how to do it. And I don't have a problem with that. I can kind of see what he's saying. I know a lot of people are confused by it, but I think I do think that's why he wants to keep everybody just in the front of everybody's mind that, hey, you know, who she saw is still the right guy. If that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you on that. I totally do.
And because I think
you know,
when you put a timeline together, when a trial ever happens, that the time that she saw him is going to be critical.
oh, I agree with you.
So they need to keep her in the loop as a witness. If you disregard the first sketch completely because she was the witness of that, you basically throw her under the bus. That didn't help you.
Right. And
I probably confused everybody worse by what I just said. I'm sorry.
I don't think you did.
I said it the best way I know how. That was just kind of explaining, Carter's explanation of it being an amalgamation of the two sketches has always been confusing. It's been a point of contention and brought up a lot. And I was just trying to make sense of it and offer something.
No, I think you did a good job. The one thing I want to say about that is that, law enforcement, they're walking a slippery tightrope here, trying to give information without giving too much of their hand. And I think that one of the things that people fail to realize is that there are things that if they put out there could absolutely blow this case apart and they would never get a conviction in court.
Yeah,
and
one shot,
they only get one shot at it. And I think that's another reason why they're being so careful. And if we've got a case that's so complicated, as they have said, and has so many layers to it, we have to take all those things into consideration, in my opinion.
Well, they have to have every single loophole. I mean, they have to have everything filled. They can you imagine if we were still at this point and they never identified the guy that was of the second sketch, and they went for 2 years. Say they were still looking for the first sketch guy. A defense attorney would say, well, what happened the first 2 years? You had a witness come forward and say they who saw him at certain place, whatever, and you never followed up on that lead. You can't have that kind of something like that hanging out there. Prosecutor's going to be very picky about this case anyway because of the focus it's going to have on it. He's got to win. He's got to win it. I mean, he has to get a conviction some way. And
so there's a comment here. Do you want to address this?
Yeah,
I put it up on the screen. Can you see it?
One phony pen.
Yeah.
Let's give space to do through it. It's an interesting theory. A lot has come to light. Of course, we all have questions. You're going to have to skip to talk. Yeah, like you and I talked about it before. I'll answer any question. And Machiavelli says that I didn't think he was harassing me. I'm of the opinion that I knew that once I made myself available to tell the theory that I have that was told, that I had I didn't realize maybe it was going to be as significant as it became. But I realized that I need to stand up and ask questions and stand up to the criticism if there is some. And
Skip, are you kidding me? You didn't realize that everybody was going to hang on your every word?
No, I didn't. I mean, I I didn't know. No, I'm not. Look, I'm not in the true crime community. I'm not. I guess I just didn't understand the massiveness of True Crime Garage's audience. I didn't realize that everybody was going to listen to it. It's unbelievable the amount of people that have contacted me since then. And
you have become world famous.
It's funny too, because it's exactly opposite of the person that I am in real life. I'm not a controversial person at all. I'm not a lightning rod at all. And so it's been a little bit of a shock to the system for me. So
yeah, I'm sure. And it's just like a couple of other people have said in chat tonight. People talk about they throw POIs around and talk about theories and stuff. We all do. And why you've taken such harassment over your theory, I really don't understand. But anyway, moving along here.
Yeah. Funny thing. I'll be more than happy to answer any questions.
Judy Holiday is going to ask us, what is our take about the lady who was supposedly walking her dog and actually spoke to Bridge Guy? She just assumed she was legit until recently.
I mean, here's what the question I had about that from the beginning is, if somebody was out there and had plans, if they were up to no good and had plans to hurt somebody, why would you stop and have a conversation with somebody?
Exactly. I believe that this dog walking lady actually started with Anthony Greeno. I think that's where it came from.
And I'm not going to be critical of that.
And I'm not going to be critical of him either, because I'm not here to bash any other content creators. But this, you know, the facts that I have are, we don't know any witness. Law enforcement has never told us that of any witness that has come forth in this case. And I will say and put it out there, the reason that they've done that is to protect these witnesses. We have a double homicide murderer walking around free. And if he knows who saw him or may have saw him or anything like that, it can put those people at risk.
Absolutely. If you consider that they believe he's following the case.
Exactly.
Don't you think he's going to try to figure out who that is? I mean, that's probably why Carter pulled the "you made mistakes, we have a witness" comment.
Right. And you know, I think that that's part of the issue here, is people are trying to speculate on things, and we don't really have, I mean, we have some information from the family because they've told us some of the things. They've talked about flannel shirt guy. Derek ran into him. But nobody ever told us who flannel shirt guy was.
Right.
Just flannel shirt guy. And I've always put out there, I know this is a horrible thought, but what if Derek ran into somebody that wasn't one of the McCains?
I think, yeah, no, look, it's possible. I think we would know that by now. But I think, yeah, it's possible, because we haven't heard anything from Derek. We haven't heard anything from FSG.
No.
I know there have been people that have said they've said certain stuff, but there's nothing that corroborates that. So the only witnesses we know of are people that have been public. The few that have been, you know, we know that Brad Heath came out and said that he saw something.
Right.
We know that DP saw something. I know people say, well, screenshots, but I have some screenshots that we haven't made public that are for sure him, and he's saying that he was there, and he did a sketch, and but this was after he changed to, he saw probably FSG or whatever, you know, again. And look, I have questions about that. He originally told Doug Rice that the guy had a scarf. You know, BG had a scarf, the original guy saw. Well, why did he think he saw FSG then? I've never heard anybody say FSG was wearing a scarf. It wasn't scarf day on the trails.
Right.
So you make a description of somebody and you say what they're wearing, and then you change it to somebody else. Well, were they wearing the exact same thing? I mean, there's things that I'd like to have the answers to.
Sure. I think we all would, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I mean,
nobody ever knows the female he was with. So
you have the interview transcript in front of you, right?
Yeah.
What
portion of it?
Okay. What do you think about everything that Kagan said about his dad? How do you feel about that? Because to me, it's almost as if he implicated his dad but didn't.
I don't think he really knows what to say. Because I even caught myself yesterday almost feeling bad for him. I was like, because he was like, hey, we were best friends, and now he's not talking to me. But I don't know all the dynamics involved with the family or anything, so it's hard for me to make a decision on what his intent was. But it's always hard to understand someone's intent. And like we talked about before, is he telling the truth about that? I mean, is he telling the truth in any of this? Is he telling the truth that they've got him with GPS in Peru? And they've told him that. He says law enforcement told him he was the last person to talk to Libby. We're talking about we're taking things that are, like you said earlier, are not coming from law enforcement.
Right. Right.
And that's the problem with the case. That's kind of it in a nutshell, is that there are so few facts that it's impossible to create any kind of hypothesis, any kind of theories without bringing some speculation into it. You try to do it. You try to do it with as much critical thinking and deductive reasoning as you can, and with as much evidence and as much corroboration of that evidence as you can find. But you're still bringing things in that were not based on something law enforcement released in an official statement or something. Because if we just went with that, we'd have so little that there'd be nothing really to follow.
So, one of the things that I did want to ask you tonight, after we talked about that, was, do you want to talk about your theory?
Yeah, I can. Yeah, sure. People seem to want to have that. I see a lot of questions about it. So, my commitment to you was I would answer your audience's questions. So, I'm certainly up for that. I think Scott is saying, do you think the male witness is still following the case? Yeah. If she's talking about the male witness of who's considered the male witness of the Old Bridge guy, yeah, he's still following the case.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, he's in one of the Facebook groups. I know he's really good friends with the girl who runs that Facebook group. I see that as a little bit of a conflict of interest, but that's just me. So, my thing would be, why is it important that, I've seen statements where he says wants to be just left alone, doesn't want BG showing up at his doorstep, and then, in another breath, he said he's a member of a Facebook group following the case. So, I'd probably pick up on things maybe because of the situation, but I just think anytime there's contradiction, it raises a red flag for me.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And especially if law enforcement comes out and says there were contradictions, which they did. They said there were a lot of contradictions in alibis early on. I think we have to pay attention to that.
Well, absolutely. And here's the thing that here's what I don't get is I've had people come up to me and say, yeah, he was there within yards of the murder. Yeah, he lied. But I'm like, just that. I hardly ever talk about it anymore on Reddit or anywhere, just because I don't like beating people over the head with it. But at the same time, if somebody asks me about it, I'll be more than happy to engage them. And so he was there. I don't talk about how the sketch and how some people say it looks just like it. It's like they took drew it off a picture. I don't know that. I don't ever bring the sketch up very much because the nature of sketches. But yeah, that's another contributing thing. Why wouldn't you consider somebody who was there? He was there. He was at around the time frame that the murders happened. And again, it goes back to you would only consider people who you knew were there at the right time. So I guess people say, well, they come after me about, dude, DP, My question would be, why have you not considered him?
Right. And like I said, I understand that because when
think accuse somebody of something, but he meets criteria of being somebody you'd look into.
anybody that was in the radius of that bridge and those trails that day, every single one of them needs to be vetted and looked at completely by law enforcement.
Absolutely.
Every single person. Not to mention the families, which we've already been told by law enforcement that they've done and they've covered them. There's a reason, and that was what I was going to ask you. Will you please explain to the audience why they use the word cleared and covered? Can you do that?
Well, I don't know that it's going to make sense. I explained it to you. You speak better than I do. You tell them.
I listen to you. I speak better than you do. Well, I've told my audience before that cleared, they're going to use cleared when the physical evidence doesn't hold up to the person they're looking at.
Right.
And then they're going to use covered when that person can't possibly be the person. They don't have anything pointing to them at all.
Right.
Nothing.
Yeah. They've been looked into, and
yes.
Nothing has been found that suggests their
involvement.
Yeah. Exactly.
Oh, and I think that is the truth. I mean, I think that's what happens, in these cases. As they're moving along, Doug Carter said, they look at the tips, they look at the people, and as they clear them or not clear them, cover them. Because I think another reason they won't use the word clear is because if something comes up later down the road and they've cleared them, then it makes really hard to prosecute the case.
Correct.
I think that's another reason in my mind.
Well, yeah, they've got a tough enough road ahead of them with, some of the things that happened early in the case and changing and all that, and because they're going to have to explain, the prosecutor's going to have to explain all that. It's going to have to lay it out there, just the way it happened. And he's going to have to do it in a believable manner. So they don't need to make it harder on themselves than they've already kind of have it already.
Right. So everybody is, and they all just look like they're just dying to know what your theory is and if it's the same as it's always been, or have you changed it at all?
No, I haven't changed it.
I'm sorry?
I haven't changed it.
So he has not changed his theory, everybody.
Well, let me clear that up. The mechanics of the theory have changed some. A lot of cases like this and theories like, if you have one, are pretty always fluid. They all but the nuts and bolts of it are the same. Just the mechanics of it are different. Some of the people involved are different, just because of information that's been uncovered. Actually, I'll be a little more specific. Information that's been given to me by people who thought I would be interested in it, and it has helped me with that's the positive side of the podcast. Doing True Crime Garage was the amount of people that reached out in a positive manner. If we focused on the negative here a lot, there's been a ton of people who've reached out in supporting ways and provided information that's been important, whether it's this person of interest or not.
Right. So basically everything that you've said over the years or whatever is pretty much the same, but just the mechanics changed.
Yeah, and maybe identification of certain people, or thinking someone may have been involved, but knowing now they really probably weren't because of circumstances. I'd give you some examples if you want me to, but there's just some change.
Go ahead, because there's people right now that are saying, here's Brenda who says she's new to the case. She doesn't know Skip's theory either.
Okay.
So if you feel like it, I mean, you don't have to go in depth, but
on True Crime Garage, I said that I thought Cheyenne's actions were suspicious and that she may not have been truthful based on her comments on social media. I've since become to understand that an assumption was made about who she saw that day, but the timeline, the time frame doesn't line up to being able to see that to make that assumption true at all. Everybody assumed that the person she saw that day was the guy in the arguing couple, the guy arguing wherever they were, but it was DP. Well, she got there at 2:50 and at 10 till 2 to 2:50, and she said she saw a couple there that was already there. Well, he claims he didn't get there till 3. So by the time he got there, he wouldn't have been. She couldn't have seen him because he wouldn't have been there yet. So people that made an assumption, and again, look, I don't know if it was an assumption or somebody was told that, and everybody just kind of believed it. I know when I first started following the case, because Cheyenne said that the couple was from Monticello, she knew them. I knew a lot. There were a lot of people who thought DP was from Monticello, because that assumption had become a fact that the person she saw was there, and that's the only person who saw him after that time. So to me, that was significant in the fact that you went from having someone who saw you that corroborated your time frame of arriving at 3 o'clock and parking at the Mears lot. Now you have nothing. Now you have none of that. Zero. And to me, that's someone who's following the case. That correction could have been made easily. Say, hey, that way, I don't know what she's, I don't know. Cheyenne didn't see me, but
right.
That was nobody ever. He never came out and said that. So, does he not say that because it worked for him? But getting back to the point is, once I found out information like that, now I'm starting to see that things may be different, and time frames that we believe to be true, or the timeline that we believe to be true, may not be true at all. Because especially if you have somebody who said, it's been assumed that they were seen at a certain time. Now there's no corroboration they were there at that time at all. That changes the time frame huge, because you're talking about somebody who was supposedly a witness, and when you consider that he originally said that he saw BG on the trails at 3:15, and we know from a source that we all know, and we know him to be because of who he talks to, is one of the things he knows is, he said, law enforcement knows that BG was with the girls at least 20 minutes after Derek was seen on camera.
Yes, so I've heard that as well.
So that puts Derek there at being seen on camera at about 3:15. That means that BG was there until with the girls till 3:35. Well, how would DP? Why would law enforcement knew that? Why would they consider a witness who saw him at 3:15 on the trails really a witness? They wouldn't.
Right, because it happened. We firmly believe that the girls were abducted somewhere between 2:13 and after.
Yeah. So if he's still there at the crime scene where the girls were found, or in that area until 3:35, he couldn't have been on the trails. So that witness couldn't have seen him. But he claims he went in and did a sketch. And if that sketch was the original old bridge guy, that, to me, that says one thing. He's either was being deceptive, or he told him he saw at a different time.
So can I go out on a limb here with you and say, are you thinking, is your thought process here that if he was a witness that gave a sketch theory, his sketch theory or his sketch was fabricated? It wasn't anybody that he saw?
It wasn't seen at 3:15.
Okay.
And then he recanted and said he saw FSG. And if you take into consideration the fact that somebody's following the case very closely, by that time they would know where if somebody who was following it real close, we all know where FSG was supposedly was at 3.
Yeah, so because of all the timeline that's been put out.
Yeah. So if somebody's trying to fabricate a story or manipulate a story, tailor a story to fit what they know, you'd say you saw FSG because you know he was right there at 3:15.
Right.
So
I thought this was interesting that this is Digital's comment. Well, let's go with Tamara's first. Tamara says, Digital, I've been watching and paying attention for several months. I believe from interviews, podcasts, that both of the McCains were in the vicinity at the bridge. One was riding a bike at the cemetery. One was at the bridge. One was riding a bike at the cemetery.
Yeah, I believe
and Digital comes back and says, she may have been forthcoming to law enforcement. She messed up by getting on social media and discussing it. Her story may have gotten screwed up then. So she was talking about, Digital's talking about Cheyenne.
Right.
Do you now still today feel that Cheyenne was being truthful at what she saw?
I don't have any reason, even though her story seems
weird,
I don't have any reason to believe. There were just some things she said. They saw 2 people sitting in a car doing a dope deal, and when you consider some of the things in the past and known people that are related and things like that, you just wonder why she would say something like that when there's no evidence that he was in the car with anybody, and if there was somebody in the car with him, it was Tara, and why would that look like somebody doing a dope deal? So I don't have any reason to believe she lied about it. I don't know what she would have gained. Was she confused? I mean, that's okay. Yeah, you would think you would want your story to get straightened out. She changed it one time already. She said you got there at 3:50, then it was 2:50. You think you'd want your story. And I'm giving her the benefit of the doubt on that. I think she wanted her story to be straight. I don't know. I'd just have a hard time believing it was over confusion.
Well, me too, because of the fact that it wasn't that far after everything had happened. I would think you would know, and especially since she was talking about having some kind of a advertisement or some kind of phone call or something happened on her phone that led her to believe that's why she knew what her time was about being there.
Call. She got it 2:50.
Whatever. Yeah, those are the kind of things. But
you have a reference point to it, so that adds some validity to it. That hey, you knew what time the call came in. So that if that's your reason for explaining why your first story didn't work. Okay, well then let's go with what you're saying now, and look, confusion. The two arguments that I never engage on are things that are like a blanket, everybody was confused, or law enforcement screwed up. That covers all ills.
Right.
And, that so you're basically that's ending the conversation. No matter what you tell me now going forward is law enforcement screwed up, or everybody was confused, or everybody's time's wrong. Not everybody's is.
Right.
So
can I ask you something?
Yeah.
So around this, like I said, I've always felt like your theory was extremely interesting, but how with everything that you just know about your theory and how you feel, what do you think about this whole catfishing thing, and how do you think this person fits in with the Anthony Schatz profile and Kagan and his dad, or do you think they are completely unrelated?
I don't have any evidence that I connect them in any way. I really haven't looked for any, but the theory always was that the girls were catfished, or at least somebody was talking to them, this person communicating with them.
So you think the person in your theory was communicating with them?
Yeah, with one of them.
Okay.
They used to live just down the road from one another.
Okay.
He's admitted to knowing the family. So
Okay.
I mean,
So
not that automatically means you communicate. I'm just saying there would be maybe not know each other, but there would be know of each other at least. Uh, so yeah, that's always been part of that. Then that's been part of uh, understanding how somebody would know that a 13 to 14-year-old girl were going to be out there by themselves that day, and in such a remote area.
mm-hmm.
I know people talk about that. Well, the trails are known. It's you. I, there's so much misinformation out there that it's hard to know what's right and what's wrong. I hear one person will say, "Oh yeah, there's tons of people on the trails, always are." Other people say, "Oh, I go out there and I've never seen a soul."
So do you think that we're moving forward in the case? Do you think there's movement?
I think they're trying to create movement. Yeah, I think they're trying to do everything they can to create movement. Uh, I think they believe there is some kind of a digital connection. Do they know? I don't. Do they know exactly what all the parts and pieces of that are? I know because I think they would have been on that track from the beginning, because we're talking about a guy that they did on his house 12 days after the murders. There was a reason that they went to his house to do a search. And when they first went there, I'm sure they saw him and they were like, "This isn't the guy. This guy's not even using a VPN to cover his tracks or any. I mean, there's no way." So there was probably some preconceived things thought early on, and yeah, and I understand that. But why, now we're going back to it 5 years later, and people are, when I first started following the case, there was hardly any belief that an online connection was made, because law enforcement has said there's no indication of that.
Exactly.
And
so had family.
And so his family, yeah. So so there was no reason, but in theory that I put out there back in August, that was the communicate. That was how they communicated, knew each other. There was a little bit of confusion when about how the Snapchat GPS, and whether that was, and people were asking questions. They were confused about that. But what we were saying, what I was saying is that somebody could have known they were there by a picture being taken and posted. Wouldn't have to be monitoring them on GPS.
Right.
So that was,
if they were friends with them, or if they saw a post on social media,
you would know where
they would have known.
Correct.
I mean, just the picture of Abby on the bridge, you would know where that is if you were local.
Absolutely.
That was one of the things that bothered me in the interview with Kagan, when Barbara asked him about Delphi. Had he ever been to Delphi? And he said, once when I was in high school, I went to a football game. And then he said, but to be honest, I don't even know how to get to Delphi.
Yeah,
I don't buy that at all, because if you get on a map and you look at it, it's a pretty good shot from Peru right down the Hoosier Highway to Delphi. So there's just so much in this interview that I don't think he was being truthful about.
No, I don't either. But again, that goes back to how do we know when he is being truthful? It's like, I think he knows where Delphi is. He's probably been to Delphi more than one time. But again, whether he or his father they're going to have to put them there at a minimum. They're going to have to put them there. And look, he's distancing himself from it. And I get that. That's what he probably should do. But they've got to put. I haven't heard any evidence that says they know of their whereabouts that day. And those same people come and rip me about a theory where I know the guy was on the trails that day. So I don't get that.
So, and I understand that. No, I understand that. Like I said, I understand where you're coming from with that. But my question is now that we know the stuff that we do know about Kagan and what he was up to, or his dad, because he's kind of blamed his dad and said that he was probably using the Anthony Shots profile, but and he even accused him of probably meeting underage girls, but stopped short of saying that he thought his dad was bridge guy.
Right.
And then went on to say how his dad was a abusive father and threatened him with guns, was horribly emotionally and physically abusive growing up,
right.
But they have a really great relationship. So, so much there, but
it was odd. It was odd. The whole thing, that whole polygraph part was strange.
What was that? And also, that's the other thing I wanted to ask you about when he was talking about his attorney and how his attorney wasn't representing him in the Delphi situation, but he was just going to sit there that day with him. What did you make of that?
I think a lot of people jumped to conclusions when this came out that there was the plea bargain. They got wind of the plea bargain. They assumed that the plea bargain had something to do with Delphi because, it was 2 + 2 is 4, I guess. It was, hey, you released a statement, you asked for tips on the Delphi line, and you're pointing to this guy who was using this account that's important. So I understand how people came to that. The problem is it's not possible. I do want to get to what Rick here's saying. That's an interesting comment, but
this one, okay, go ahead.
I want to finish this though. Is that I talked to a couple of attorneys. I think I showed you one post that he made about that didn't believe it was even legal in Indiana that if you to plea against future charges. If there are no charges again the Delphi case, how do you use that to plea against his current charges in Miami County? So I think a lot of people jumped to the conclusion that that's what was going on when it wasn't. The plea bargain was strictly about the current charges, but putting 2 and 2 together, they've said, well, he's being looked at into the Delphi, so that must be the thing. And then his comments were that, hey, yeah, they asked me about it, and that they said if I turned in my dad, all the charges would be gone, right? Isn't that what he said?
Yeah, that basically what he said was that they told him the day that he was arrested that they knew his dad was bridge guy, and that if he would flip on him, that they would make them go away.
Right. And he said, then he followed that up with, but I sat in the room all by myself because I didn't have, I would have a different attorney if I was charged in the Delphi case. You would have an attorney that specialized in murder cases, as opposed to the current attorney he has. So
right.
he would be talking to them without counsel. That would be an issue. So that's why the attorney that I talked to was on Reddit was saying that he didn't think it was even legal that you could do that. The guy could come forward and say and offer up information. I'm not saying you can't do that, but there has to be some kind of a coordinated deal where all those parts and pieces are put in place before it can happen.
Right, exactly.
Plus, look, everybody knows over 90% of cases are plead down anyway. It's just time saving, money saving, all that. So for that to happen, and for any of these the movement in trial dates and things like that, it's 100%. I mean, it's just completely normal. That there's nothing really to see in some of this stuff that people are making something out of it. And that's not because that part of it would discredit my theory or anything, because that's true.
Right.
So,
but I'm just like, I've got a number of different thoughts on what might have been happening here, and I don't, I've thought a lot about it, as far as, it could have been more than just a couple of people that knew about all this, what was happening with the girls that day, where they were going to be. And I think it's very possible that Tony Klein was the person speaking with them. It's possible that they both were, that Kagan and Tony both were sharing that Anthony Schatz profile,
yeah,
whether knowingly sharing it or whatever. I think that's very possible in my mind.
I think law enforcement probably thinks that's very possible.
But I also think that it's also very possible that I just think that their behavior is weird. They went to great lengths to create a fake persona for Kagan in Vegas.
Right.
The Murder Sheet podcast called every single employer that he had listed on his Facebook, and none of them were able to verify employment. They'd never heard of him. And right. So, I mean, all of that kind of stuff, and
those were lies. Yeah, those were just straight out lies.
Yep, the activity, and then the whole stuff that happened with the iPhone 5C, the phone that he was using as his own, as he said, was his own phone. What if that wasn't his phone, though? What if it was his dad's? I mean, there's just so many things that don't make sense to me. And, he made the comment in that interview that after he came home from his polygraph and was brought home by police, he walked in the house and there was the phone sitting on the counter. It's kind of like Dad had it. It was in his pants or his pocket or whatever.
He called them immediately and said, "Hey, you guys forgot this to get this." He didn't explain the circumstances surrounding how they missed it. Just that, hey, you missed it. Here it is. I need to give this to you. But before I give it to you, let me wipe a few apps off here.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, somebody cleaned that phone. If it wasn't him, it was his dad.
No, look, he said I'm effed, but that doesn't mean it was about Delphi. He's definitely effed in his current situation.
No, I agree with you on that as far as the charges that he's looking at now. But what I'm saying is, why would you go to great lengths to wipe a phone of CSAM or whatever, mm-hmm. when you already turned over all these other devices with it all over them? So to me, it leads me to believe that there was something worse, far more than CSAM on that phone that they didn't want him to see, or they didn't want law enforcement to see or know about.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think that's very possible. I try not to go with those things that take too many leaps to get to a conclusion.
I understand.
But on that one, it's, could his father have had the phone? Yeah, could have. Could law enforcement just have missed it? Probably not, but it's possible. Did he immediately call him and tell him, or did he hold that back himself because he knew? All of those things are in play. There's no question about it. I'm not denying any of it.
Yeah.
And law enforcement's probably having a really hard time getting to the bottom of all of it, and that's probably that's why they're trying to find out as much information as they can. And
right.
That that's one of the problems with the case, is because look, whether you want to blame law enforcement or however it went, or they were deceived or however, they missed the first. They did a couple of search warrants. They did it at the one family on Bicycle Road. What was it called? What's the road? Something Bicycle Road. Anyway.
Oh yeah, you're the first search warrant, or one of the first search warrants,
Yeah, I
was
didn't want to
served
say.
on Bicycle Road.
Yeah. So, and apparently some of the same type things were taken from that house, that home residence, as Klein's technological stuff, digital stuff. So, law enforcement knew of who the girls were communicating with. So they were on that. They were on that early on. They were on that. Now coming back to it, what happened in that 5 years that has made their job harder? Probably a lot. 5 years gives somebody a long time to get rid of things, destroy evidence.
No, exactly. That bothers me a lot. That there's just what's been out there now, as far as anybody that is truly BG. He's had a ton of time to create all kinds of false narratives and get rid of evidence and whatever.
Yeah, the chances for them getting a lot of physical evidence, which I don't think they have much of, is behind them now. And so we're talking about, they're trying, when people say one piece, or law enforcement says one piece, they're trying to get the two best pieces of potentially the two best pieces of evidence that they have, and what kind of differentiates this case from others is they have the guy on audio and on video, but they can't introduce either one of those into evidence because they have no positive identification on either.
Right.
All they would be doing is creating reasonable doubt for themselves by introducing it. Hey, we're introducing, but we don't know who the hell that is.
Yeah, exactly. No, for sure.
So they've got to have, at a minimum, somebody identify the guy on the bridge.
Yeah.
And that's, if they don't get that, they got a tough road. They just do, just because they're so lacking of physical evidence. From what I've been told, they don't have the amount of DNA that can identify, just excludes. So
everybody in the chat is talking about the fact that this transcript was released yesterday, and was it an accident or was it on purpose? Do you want to address that? What you think?
I don't really know. I think it's possible that, like I mentioned earlier, there's some sensitive things as far as the family goes, possibly. And would you, instead of law enforcement coming out and releasing it themselves and taking responsibility for it, I think it's possible that they would seek another avenue to get something out that they didn't want to really deal with, right now. So I think it's possible. I haven't heard anybody say that for sure. That they said it was something was uploaded or put into the case documents by mistake, and another person just happened to be in there at that time and got it. That's pretty serendipitous, I guess, but I guess that's possible.
Yeah, I just I don't think in this case in particular that law enforcement would do anything not strategically planned.
Great.
That's just me. So I don't think it was an accident.
Yeah, they've been really measured and thoughtful in everything they've done, just because they know they have to be. I don't see any reason why, things happen and mistakes are made and all that kind of stuff, but
I do think it's interesting that it was put out and then it was retracted. It was pulled back.
And wasn't reading something about erroneous?
Yeah, it did say erroneous. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's kind of unusual.
That's what I thought too. Yeah.
Kind of sense that you're kind of saying it was wrong, but was it wrong? The information you put out wrong, or was it wrong that you put it out?
Yeah. And Tech Death is saying, see, the murder sheet is out of Indiana. And Tech Death said that the murder sheet is super close with law enforcement. And he thinks they planned this with them, and Barbara knew too.
Possible, yeah, that's possible.
And my feeling on it is, I just don't understand why we've got 25 pages here, and why the only questions she asked or that was shown on their special were just these couple of questions that really, because there's a lot of other stuff in here that I think's a lot more interesting than what she asked. I don't know. I just thought that was kind of odd.
The discouraging part for me is that the more of what I see and what they do, the more it tells me they don't have much evidence at all.
So are you feeling at this point in time that they that's what's really holding everything back, is that maybe they do know who this person may or may not be, but they just don't have what they need to charge him?
I think that's probably the most likely thing. Yeah. I don't think that they have no idea who this guy is. That they narrowed that down and streamlined it pretty well when they released a new sketch and told us he was local and we're speaking to the killer directly.
Yeah.
I know the argument is, well, that's an FBI profiling thing, and they were talking about power and all that. But when you attach a new sketch with it and you attach the local aspect, it leads me to believe that maybe they know, or at least have a really good idea. But they don't have. Look, if it was somebody they know that was on the trails that day, that's not good enough. They got to put somebody with the girls.
Exactly. I've been saying that for 5 years. Yeah. Just because you think it's somebody that was out there, you actually have to, I hate to say it, but you have to put him with the girls with the murder weapon.
Yeah.
Just being on the bridge isn't enough.
It has to start there, though. It has to be, because they have been so committed to the man on the bridge is the killer.
No, I do understand that. I mean, I know they've said that, the guy on the bridge is who's responsible.
Is that enough to get a conviction? That we'll find out. I think it's probably enough to get an arrest, but I don't know. But I agree, it may not be enough.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
One of the things that I always go back to is that Doug Carter keeps telling us that we know a lot, and I wish we could tell you what we know, and one day we'll be able to, and why we've done the things we've done.
Right.
And I tend to believe him.
Yeah.
So I just
again I have to just always go with what they say. Some of the things he said is, Tobes said earlier on we didn't identify somebody as a suspect early on. Well, what is that? That tells you something, right? It tells you missed somebody for a reason.
Exactly. Not telling why did you overlook them?
Yeah, you're not telling us what. Maybe we didn't ask the right questions. You get a follow up with the new guy who's going running for sheriff and saying that, well, we didn't have the kind of people involved to interview that could strike a nerve, or actually that was Tobes' words, but to elicit the kind of answers we wanted to get. So the biggest question is, were the mistakes that were made early on irreparable?
Right.
And God, I don't want to think that, but I always keep in mind that that's a possibility. And as more we go along here, it becomes more of a likelihood. And that's that just I know nobody wants to hear that. Nobody wants to hear that. And
no, I know that, and I appreciate you putting that out there because
it's reality. It's possible that this case is never solved.
No, I know. And I hate to go there.
Me too.
I just hate to go there because I just want the girls so badly to get justice and for their families too. And I just don't think a killer of two innocent children should be able to walk the earth without paying for it.
He needs to be held accountable, absolutely.
Because
I think he got away with it.
I think at this point, the person definitely feels like they've gotten away with it.
Yeah.
Digital said to Phony, I think they are trying to get someone above Klein, someone with power and control.
It's possible, yeah. Possible. They could be using Klein to. I think the pressure. They've been talking about pressure, and then some of the stuff that that if we're to believe Klein, that they said to him about, hey, we know, he did it, and we need you to, tells me that they're trying to get somebody to come out and say it, whoever it is. And unfortunately, it hadn't been successful so far. And once you've gotten to that point, again, I go back to that, tells me the pretty light on physical evidence and possibly witnesses.
Yeah, I definitely tend to agree with all that.
I do think that they think this Anthony Shots account it has some significance to the case. I don't know that we know exactly what it is. Does it just suggest that there's a digital component to it? Possibly. Does it suggest this guy is involved? Possibly. I don't think we know enough yet to make a determination.
Right. And I do fall back on that. And I do tell my subscribers and guests all the time that, we have to realize we don't know enough to be certain or to say anything is factual.
Yeah.
When we're talking about what may or may not be going on here.
Right.
I just can't believe that they would have released everything that they've released and all the things that they've said if they didn't have something.
Yeah, I agree. One of the biggest pushbacks I've gotten with DP is that the physical characteristics, do either one of these guys really meet the physical characteristics of what they say the guy on the bridge is? I mean, if we're gonna hold people to standards of that, let's be consistent with it.
Don't you think that DP's too tall?
No. Well, based on what they've said, but once I realized that when Tobe said that biometrics weren't used to determine the height, then I reconsidered. I don't believe he's the height that he says, and I think he's more along the height of the very upper end of what law enforcement believes BG is.
So can you tell me what you think his height is?
5'11".
So you think he's 5'11"?
Yeah.
Because he looks kind of tall, but like 6 foot. I mean, and I've said before that I think Bridge Guy could be 6 foot. And the only reason I'm saying that is because I think there could be an inch or two discrepancy in that.
Yeah,
you can't hold everything to...
Technology wasn't used to determine it.
It all depends on what technology was used and how that was all figured out. And I definitely think that there's just... people hold certain things in this case to just... somebody described it to me, and I don't remember who it was. It may have been True Crime Jesus who said it to me, but it was... people hold things like almost like they do their sporting mascots that they love, their sports teams.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they will go down on the mat and fight blood if
Yeah, it becomes like a phantom. It becomes that irrational.
Exactly. And Bridge Guy's height is one of them. Right. And also his weight. What do you think about the fact that they lowered the weight by 20 pounds?
I don't know exactly when that happened.
Do you want me to tell you?
Well, I noticed it well back.
Okay.
I noticed it months ago.
Yes.
And I know it had been brought to the attention that it happened very recently. I don't believe that's right.
No.
I didn't take a screenshot of it at 2:20 to prove. I just saw it, and I remember thinking, that's odd. Why does the FBI have to say 200 pounds? So I just assumed maybe that batch of posters was a misprint. And but again, we go back to that when sketches change, and you're talking about a different person. Why are the physical characteristics not changing? Why is the hair still the same, reddish brown? The hairstyle looks completely different. The age looks completely different. But
did they change? Did they take the eye color out though?
I believe so. Yeah. Was the whole non-blue or I know what color. I know it wasn't blue or whatever what statement was. Is I don't know.
Right.
That's odd to me. If you saw somebody close enough that you could tell their eye color,
Same here. I've always wondered about that. And the other thing too that I've always wondered is when I meet someone that I've never seen before, or I'm walking past someone, you always usually, I mean, I do. I look at their face, and one of the first things I'm drawn to is the eyes.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree. And somebody may have a thing for blue eyes, and they just notice people with blue eyes because that's an attraction to them. And they noticed this guy didn't have that. I don't think that's a uh, unreliable statement. I think it's a little bit different, odd, but it's not unreliable.
Yeah, and I think the other thing too is, you have to go back to how unreliable witness statements are. um, and I don't think that's not addressed enough in this case.
Agreed.
I have a very close friend who's a judge, and he told me so many times that eyewitness statements are the worst,
Yeah.
and especially in a court of law. But I mean, I can't imagine when they're getting all these different descriptions of what was seen out there, how maddening that can be for law enforcement to try to put together.
Well, and they know defense attorneys are going to just beat them down. They know that they're going to question everything, try to discredit everything about the statement. How far were you away? How were you wearing this? There's just so much that uh, now you don't really want to try to hang your entire case on that for sure.
Right.
That's just a small component. That maybe establishes the time frame that a person was at a place or something like that. It's not a
No, and I think that we do have to look at that eyewitness testimony, whatever that may turn out to be, with a little bit of this person saw this and this person saw that, and nobody saw the girls. And what do you think about that? The fact that nobody's come forth and said that they saw the girls that day,
I
because
think
that's that.
I think almost somebody had to see the girls.
Okay.
I mean, we know BG did, but somebody almost. There was a group of kids there that left and went to Riley Park, and they left just after the girls got there. So they would almost that group of girls would have had to see them.
Right.
Now, that group of girls, one of them is the 16-year-old witness. So is that all of that information being protected? I actually would kind of hope so. Law enforcement wouldn't put a gag order, but they would tell witnesses that it's in their best interest, in the best interest of the case, not to talk about it. So any witness who does, I think that's unusual, and you wonder why is somebody out speaking about what they saw.
Well, I got tore up on Reddit for writing about that, because I wrote about that way last year, about why the witnesses were not speaking publicly about what they knew or didn't know. And again, I think they've been told by law enforcement not to speak about this case, and especially for their own protection and the protection of the case.
Absolutely. There's no question. Yeah, I mean, you wouldn't. I mean, why would you want to bring attention to yourself?
Exactly.
Unless you were trying to get a story out there. I mean, I know.
No, exactly.
I want to be, he just wanted to be, being more important than the 10 minutes of fame, whatever. This is two little girls who got murdered. Or he told a story of he's cheating on his girlfriend, so that makes it over. This is a 13 and 14-year-old girl got murdered. You think law enforcement gives a shit about if you're a side piece?
Yeah.
That story doesn't fly.
No, I agree with you.
So sometimes sometimes witness statements are unreliable because they're untrue.
Oh, I totally agree. And I do believe that there's people that will insert themselves into crime scenes, into searches. They will find any way they can to make themselves a part of a case that's big like this, so that they can get famous from it.
Sad.
Pardon me?
Sad, isn't it?
It's very sad. There's some sick people that surround this case.
Stop it.
We've seen it.
Oh, come on.
You know that, right?
A case like this in social media combination, you think there's some crazy people? Stop.
I mean, you know, we've both seen them, those crazy people, so we know they're out there. But yeah, I mean, and it is sad because this is real life. You and
Right.
I've talked about it. These are real people that are still hurting. These are real families with feelings. I mean, you're a dad, you know,
Yep.
you know,
I
you
can't even imagine what they're going through.
exactly. It's like, you know, every day everybody's like, well, I can put this to bed or I can take a few days off from the case and I don't have to think about it. They don't
Right.
get that
No, they
opportunity,
don't do that. Yeah.
you
And
know?
both sides, you know, whether it be Anna or the Patty's Germans. And I know that side of that side's bigger because there's aunts and uncles and grandparents and
Right.
all. And they get talked about more uh, than Anna does. But
I just think Anna has chose to remain really quiet in her grief. She doesn't like to I mean, she does speak and she, you know, she has spoken, she's given interviews, but I just think for her I can't imagine what it was like for her, a single mom. She lost her best friend. They were so close, and not only that, but her daughter, and it's just I
yeah,
just can't.
I'll tell Ivy Rose that uh, it's Florida Panhandle, but she's asking about accents.
Oh, I bet I know why she asked you if it
That
sounds like
that's
Alabama.
that's Southern. Well, I went to school at Auburn, so
I get that, but I bet that's not why she asked that question.
what's that?
You know who lives in Alabama, right?
Yeah, a lot of people do.
Look in the private chat.
Private chat. Hold on. I'm in comments. Oh God! Oh.
Yep, I'm sure that's why.
Okay, yeah, that's yeah. Okay. I
Anyway,
forget about him. You know, he
exactly.
he seems to be the brunt of all of the negativity or the blame. You know, if something happens, oh, it was Godsey. You know, Godsey did it.
Yeah, do you want to address that at all,
Well,
Skip?
I think some people probably have taken advantage of that, put out some of their own stuff that's ridiculous like that, and then I can always blame Godsey.
I've thought about that too. I think there's quite a few
He's not
people.
responsible for all of it. I can promise you.
Oh yeah, I don't believe he's responsible for all of it either. I will say that for sure.
Yeah,
Um,
I think early on there was a lot of stuff, but I don't think that since the amount of people that cover it now, I don't think that he's responsible for all of it by any means.
um, yeah, Ivy Rose. He just said he went to Auburn, so he's from the South. He's grown up in the South. He lives in the South, so he already said that.
Florida Panhandle, so that's basically South Alabama.
Yeah, he said Florida Panhandle.
Does she like Southern men?
Did you hear that, Ivy? Oh, she goes, I wasn't trying to bring Godsey up.
I didn't say you were bringing Godsey up. There's somebody in the private chat is talking about that.
Yes.
I was suggesting that.
Yeah, no, it wasn't aimed at you, Ivy. Not you at all. Not you at all.
Yeah.
There have been people that have put out claims about things that just aren't true.
Like me being Godsey?
Like you being Godsey. Exactly.
Yeah.
Skip is not Godsey.
No. I'm Skip. I'm not anybody else. I get accused of being alts on Reddit. I've had one account, never had more than one. It's amazing, people. It's okay for them to make all false accusations about me, but if I open my mouth about anything, it's like, all hell breaks loose.
I'm glad that you addressed it that way because that's how I kind of feel about it too. I mean, they can throw you under the bus all night long.
It's the anonymity of social media and the internet. I mean, nobody would say that to my face, but they're brave enough behind their computers to come out.
No, exactly, and I agree with you on that. And I think with everything True Crime Maria and I, we've become pretty good friends through all this mess. And she and I talked about this so much about how it's so important to kind of have that anonymity. around true crime when we're covering it. There's so many crazy people that are willing to threaten you and do all kinds of stuff, and you just got to be careful. I mean, it's the internet, for God's sake.
Yeah. I'm not trying to hide away from who I am, but I'm also trying to be protected because I have family that I don't want to.
Exactly. Skip, did you see what Rick said?
What? Skip is not, yeah. I like Tech Death Hippie says she likes Southern Skip.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's well, it's that accent that you have. That's what it is.
I don't, you know what? I sound so terrible that I haven't, I know you're gonna find this hard to believe. I have never listened to not a single word of True Crime Garage podcast. Not a single word of any time I was on Garage's show.
I know, you told me.
I'm not planning on listening to any of this. It makes me kind of cringe when I hear myself talk.
Tech
like,
Death's
no wonder people think I'm a hick. I said, Jesus Christ.
Tech Death's gonna get you a theme song.
Bring it on, baby.
I
need one. I need it to come on when I'm walking down the street. Just start.
There you go. There you go. Well, does anybody in chat? We've been on here for a while, and I don't want to make Skip sick of me. So,
and I seriously, whether the comments about it were good or bad, I want to appreciate everybody coming out, and because I know everybody has interest in the case, and that's one thing we have in common, whether we agree on theories or persons of interest or whatever. The importance is that everybody has a passion for the case because they wanted to get it solved. And I think it's important that we remember that we all have a common bond there, but sometimes we don't see it. We try to focus on the things that aren't common. We try to focus on the things that we disagree about. And I don't understand that. We'd be a lot stronger if there was less of that.
There's a question that Digital put in. They want to know did True Crime Garage clear it with law enforcement before they aired your interview on their podcast?
True Crime Garage, yes. There was they contacted law enforcement, and then at least 3 times by email and 3 times by telephone calls, saying that explaining who the podcast was going to be about, and saying that if we were pointing a finger at an innocent person or jeopardizing the case in any way, we would pull the podcast and not air it. So that happened. This is not a witch hunt. It's not I don't have any kind of there's no personal vendetta. I'd like to talk to the guy, actually.
Well, I'm like, how could you? You're in the Panhandle.
Yeah. Why didn't? Yeah. No, I mean, because maybe they just don't understand why, I have a person. I don't know, but it's not.
Like I said, I think you got lumped in, just like I said in the beginning, before I brought you on, I told them that I felt that you had been lumped in with some other people that were really, truly doxing him and being they went really heavy, like baseball bat heavy against him. And that's how I felt about it, what was happening, and especially on Facebook. And you weren't a part of that.
I've never mentioned it. I've never mentioned the name.
I know you haven't.
Initials. Like I said, I would love to hear the whole story. I'd love to hear why I'm wrong. We received a couple of emails after the True Crime Garage podcast saying the theory was wrong because he left it too. I was like, do what? And these were from family friends who was telling me that, hey, here's the reason the theory's wrong.
Well, how can that be, though, if we don't know for sure when he got there or when he left, because it's never been confirmed?
Exactly. So, I mean, and then one of the responses was by True Crime Garage was, well, hey, here's a screenshot saying he got there at 3, and the response was from the friend, well, that's not what he's been telling us. So, again, it goes back to that. You got a guy who was there and is not being truthful, is having cheating or having a side piece. Is that enough for you to lie in a case where 2 little girls were murdered. I'm bringing up issues. People are more than welcome to think if they have any validity or not. That's up to them. I'm just telling you what I know and what I've what information I've garnered through following the case. It's up to everybody else. It's up to each individual person to decide whether they have believe it or not.
So that's one of the things that I've always respected Skip for, is that he always keeps an open mind about everything. Even though he has this theory that he's put out there, he's still open to other people's theories and other people's ideas. And not everybody is like that. It goes back to confirmation bias. And, everybody just, they have this narrow-minded look that they look at things. They latch onto these POIs and they won't let go of them. And Skip's not that person.
Well, I didn't come to the case day one like a lot of people have. I had to muddle through all of that stuff that was early on. Although I do believe early information like that is really pertinent and really important. I didn't have the whole first sketch thing and believing it was that person, and then having to change it and get that out of your mind. And then the question of is it a combination? All that. I came into it when the second sketch had already been released, and so was that an advantage? I don't. It could have been in a way because I didn't have, like I said, I didn't have to muddle through all that. I had to. So maybe that's part and parcel to why some of the beliefs I have are what they are.
Yeah, Little Pookie said, was there a cheating couple under the bridge? I think you addressed that earlier, but
I'll just say this, Pookie, is the very first thing I said in the True Crime Garage podcast is a perp and law enforcement have 180-degree opposite agendas. And not just that law enforcement wants to catch the guy and the guy didn't want to be caught. I'm talking about in terms of investigative strategies. And how that relates to this case is law enforcement wants to put somebody underneath that bridge between 2:30 and 3:30. Whoever this guy is going to do anything he can to avoid being there. So I think it's important just to remember that as we go forward, is whose stories avoid that scenario.
And I agree with you. If you've got anybody out there that's saying they were there that day near that bridge at the time those girls were murdered, that's a problem. If they don't have a reason for being there.
Especially if somebody, one story is he left at 2 and the other one is they didn't get there till 3.
Exactly.
Pretty interesting time to avoid. So.
Right. Exactly.
I'm not trying to do another True Crime Garage. I don't have any intent. Like I said, I don't have any intent to hammer people with this stuff.
No, and I get it. I know. What about the jacket? We haven't talked about that. I just want to hit on it just briefly. What did you think about the whole thing with the jacket that came out with True Crime Garage? And
weren't Sleuth Intuition and Matt Sullivan talking about that a couple of months prior?
Yes, they were.
Well, so why was True Crime Garage? Why did everybody think that was new information and held them to a different? Again, some people were just being held to a different standard. Maybe that's good because maybe they considered them more legitimate. So their information should be more responsible. I don't know, but
Matt Sullivan had said. I think what Matt said was that, hey, we've got an inside person that told us that bridge guy left his jacket in the woods, and law enforcement went back in March and found it. That's what his original story was.
Okay, well, I don't have a story like that. I know.
I'm just saying.
I was told that law enforcement spent a few days at Subaru, and there was a possible Subaru connection. That turned into Subaru's colors blue, and the possible, why were they looking at people at Subaru? The problem with it is even if you knew that was a Subaru jacket, it doesn't single anyone out. We know several people who work there who law enforcement's talked to. We know several people they've interviewed. We know people they've given uh, polygraphs too, searched their house. One of them who looks right over the looks right down the crime scene. His mother garage was searched twice. So was that because of proximity to the crime or because of Subaru? I don't know, but I'm just saying, even if you knew that the Subaru jacket that's what he was wearing, that doesn't mean anything. I mean, it means something. I said that wrong. It doesn't single anyone out.
Exactly. If you can't, the fact that there's a jacket out there that may be blue and come from Subaru, and there is a possibility that Bridge Guy wore it, well, then he must work at Subaru. No, that's not what that means.
Exactly. I think you first have to understand if we knew why law enforcement spent a few days at Subaru interviewing people, we'd have a better understanding. There was a reason why they thought that the Subaru there could have been a connection. I don't know what that was. I don't know if did BG leave a keychain on that? I don't know. I'm just saying they went there for a reason. So it's easy to make the connection once you know that. Corroborating it all and singling somebody out is a different story.
Right.
It doesn't point at anyone directly. All we know is there's a suggestion that Subaru has a connection to Subaru, and that's pretty much it. And that we know of several POIs or people that at least have been talked to that worked or currently work at Subaru. Now it's up to everybody else to look into the information if that person was working at a shift that allowed them to be off at that particular time of day or whatever. I'm not going to go into that. But anyway, I just don't think it gives us an answer. So
no, I don't think so either. I just wondered why the way it came out and everything. I talked to you about it. I just thought it was a little sensational. And I don't know.
I agree.
And I was just kind of like, why all of a sudden? And no, I'm not trying to hold True Crime Garage to any standard that I wouldn't hold any other person.
No, I know. Other people. I'm just saying there were other social media people talking about it prior to.
Right. Exactly.
Nobody seemed to have a problem with it. So.
Nope, I totally agree with that. And again, I think that's what follows around this whole Delphi story is there's camps, kind of. And it depends on where the information comes from and what camp it comes from, instead of looking at it in a factual, critical thinking kind of way. I don't know.
Yeah, digital said maybe Crime Garage assistant, possibly. I mean, everything's on the table. That's one of the big things about this case. It's hard to take things off the table. That's why I'm never critical of anyone else's theories they're thinking outside the whether it involves dog attacks that kill the girls or dolls at the crime scene or any of that. Even as sensationalized as it might sound, I don't criticize anybody's theory because it's hard to remove things off the table when we don't know.
And that's true. You're absolutely right.
I just don't. I don't see the point of everybody being critical of everybody else. And why does that get under your skin so bad?
The only time I do really get really upset is when they're talking about family involvement. That really upsets me.
I agree. They don't do Tamara stuffed teddy bear. Is there an image that you can see a stuffed teddy bear once you know it's there? Yeah. There's a person on Reddit who told me about that he's got a dog in his jacket, and I looked at it and I was like, "Holy shit!" The power of suggestion is great. I mean, I saw a miniature schnauzer in his coat, and I was like, "Okay, I got to this. Maybe this time to take a break."
Did you see one really?
Yeah, my eyes. If you believe you're going to see that, your eyes will see it.
Well, that's true. I mean, the power of suggestion, they say, is powerful.
I agree with
So,
that. She says, I'm fine with theories. It's putting stuff out of fact. I agree.
yeah.
I've been 100% upfront that this is a theory. This is based on what law enforcement said, what what people that were there said, what the person who's the person of interest has said. I haven't said any of it's fact. I said they said it. Now, if you want to question whether they said it or not, because you believe that screenshots are, notoriously unreliable, or however you want to say it, that's fine. But it's not going off of information that's not out there. So, but I agree with Ivy that things shouldn't be fact.
No, and I agree with that too. That's the thing that bothers me when people put out theories as fact.
It's Stu Sutcliffe's dildo.
Where's that at? Oh God, Tech.
Yeah.
Oh geez.
Well, he is so awesome. He's the best. Stu Sutcliffe's dildo.
Wow. Well,
that's the noise distortion or modification we hear in the background. It's this buzzing.
What is it?
When we hear him set the audio, maybe that's what we're hearing in the modification of the noise is the vibration.
Okay, I see. I'm following you now.
Yes, I can tell. Look, it's getting late. We're running out.
It is. Yeah, if you have anything you want to say to wrap it up, we've been on here a while, so I think we should be getting off. So I don't want you to.
I hope I got, I hope I answered everybody pretty much what they were asking. I tried to keep an eye on it. I appreciate everyone coming out, because I know their interest in the case is real, and that's important. We need to keep it out there. The worst thing that can happen. Look, there's worse things than arguing. Is once apathy is that's much worse.
I think we kept it pretty calm in here this evening. I think even for having at one point over 100 people in here, we kept it pretty tame. I like to have a good debate. It's always good to talk about things.
Yeah, look, take what I say for what it is. I mean, I'm not trying to convince anybody of anything. I'm not trying to tell anybody that, hey, you should believe this. You're stupid if you're not at all. I'm just telling you the things that I've put together. It's up to you whether you think there's any validity to it or not.
True. Well, we certainly appreciate you coming on and being here with us tonight.
Well, I appreciate you for everything, for real.
Yeah, no, I know. And I feel the same. And like I said, I think that you brought up a whole lot of good points about the case tonight, and whether the theory's the same or not isn't the point. It's all the other things that you talked about.
Let's see where the current stuff goes. We've had current stuff that looked promising and didn't lead to anything. Let's see where it goes. Maybe it gives us something. Maybe it gives it, even if it just gives law enforcement a pathway to something. Maybe nobody they're talking currently is the person, but it gives them a pathway in the investigation. That's a huge positive. So hope just stay, trying to stay as positive as I can.
Right. Well, I certainly appreciate that, and I do appreciate you coming on tonight with us, and we'll talk and chat with you later.
Listen, again, I appreciate the invite. I enjoyed it.
Oh, you're very welcome.
Okay.
Thank you. All right, guys, I'm going to go ahead and say goodnight to you all. It's been 2.5 hours here, and it's been a long time, and I hope that everybody had a really, really good time listening and got some good information. I know that there's a lot of controversy around him, but I thought it would be good to have him on and have a good chat about Delphi. So I hope that you guys, I really appreciate each and every one of you for coming and spending the time with me. I really appreciate all of my moderators, anyone who's, listens or watches my stuff. I really appreciate it. So thank you. And I'll talk to you guys later.